The truth, it's out there, and it's waiting for you. The Unexplained Network is your source for the best in paranormal programming, live video streaming, and audio streaming from hauntings, UFOs, Bigfoot, cryptids, and the ever-expanding realm of the unexplained. Listen live or on demand now on Spreaker, Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeart, and Pockets all over the World Wide Web. The Unexplained Network, where unexplained lives.
Welcome to Unnext News. I'm your host, Margie K, and we are here every Friday night at 6 p.m. Did want to mention a couple of things. Sometimes I do a different show called The Margie K Show, and that is over on the Woo channel. So if you go to YouTube and look up Woo, you will find us. And so we just talk about a little different subject matter over there. And tonight I have a special guest. His name is Derrick Smith. Derrick, of course, has a great show on our network. And let me find that graphic here real quick. This is a nice graphic. The Other Side of the Bridge. And Iron City Paranormal is his investigation group. And he and Dan Metelsky do that show, which is great. He's also an author. We've published a couple of books so far, but he's got more in the works. And Derrick is a long-time, very experienced paranormal investigator. So we're going to be talking about his books and some of his investigations and his show and a lot of good things. So welcome to the program, Derrick.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been a while since I've had you on the show. And I know you've always got a lot going on and just very interesting cases. And so I guess let's just start with, I know you've had personal experiences because we've talked about that before, but on any of your cases that you've investigated in the past year or two, have you run across anything that you were affected by?
Well, for starters, yes, you're right. There's always a lot going on. Always something new in the works. But as far as investigations that have affected me personally, there have been a few, and they're actually for the better. We've been doing some smaller, lesser-known locations, some private residences, things that can help people more than just supply evidence. And during some of those moments, there was one here in Brentwood, PA, close to Pittsburgh, where we found out that these two people thought that they had something going on. Some old homeowner stuck there for some reason, even trying to scare them out. When we really started to dig in and the activity really picked up, we found out mid-conversation that it was actually a relative of theirs that was watching over them. Originally, they said that they wanted us to cleanse as well, which we do. You know, we'll go in sometimes and just do cleansings rather than investigations. I'm very glad that we did both this time. So once they found that out, they were like, "Oh no, there's no reason and sending them packing because they're there to watch over them, protect them." And that hit home, because it was extremely helpful for them. It kind of settled their minds to allow them to know that there was somebody there that was actually for the best, rather than trying to scare them and run them off. What was that, Margie? I think you're muted.
How often do you run into that type of situation?
Not very. Most of the time it's someone related to the property or the building, not necessarily related to someone. It's happened a few times, but it's not common. There were a few times where, it hasn't been recent, but there have been times in the past where we have found out that there's a relative nearby kind of sending them signals. Maybe not, watching over them necessarily, but letting them know that they're there, that they haven't left, and that they're helping them make decisions, being there for the tough times. Even out in Gettysburg, where we feel like, you would have something that is Civil War related or traumatic. One of the bed and breakfasts that we investigated there was actually a woman's husband that was still there, and they were sending us signals in the form of a bird and some feathers that were left behind, things that he directly said that he was a bird lover, and he loved this bird, and he would say that it would come around, when times were tough, and that he would come back as that bird. And we had no idea. We went into it blind, and then afterwards, when we're hearing all of these things, and then we tell her exactly what we're hearing, she's almost in tears, knowing that he's still there.
What type of bird was that?
It was a white owl.
Oh, okay.
Very, very specific, very particular, and even to the extent that they're not natural to that area, and that a feather had actually fallen off, and her granddaughter picked it up and took it to school with her without really even knowing what it was, and she said that she felt like her grandpa was with her that day. So it was very interesting. After we find those things out and we're able to tell her about them, a lot of things just start to click and fall into place.
Interesting. What are some of the other ways that people who have crossed over use as a form of communication?
There's plenty. There have been times where they will mention specific conversations or locations that are meaningful to the person. I give you one example of that, where a woman's husband had passed away, and before he passed away, he told her that she promised him that they would go to what's called the Rivers Casino here in Pittsburgh. You recover, you get better, and we're going to go downtown. We're going to gamble. So he passed away, unfortunately. And during the investigation of that residence, on our ovilus, actually, the word river and the word gambling came up, and it was just, we had no idea. It was kind of completely off topic when we're asking if they have if they had anything to say. And again, the woman was in tears when she heard that. And then we found out about that story. So the pieces, again, fall into place after the fact. And those are the kind of things that really hit home and really, are really meaningful, and they kind of stick with you.
We had an incident several years ago when my aunt crossed over at the church. We were all there. We were there, just the family was there early before the service. And all of the lights in the church went out, and leaving only the candlelight. Well, my aunt was known for liking candlelight, and she hated regular lighting. And so we all just turned around, looked at each other, and like, yep. Hello, Aunt Dot.
Well, it's nice to know that they're there,
Yeah.
Actually, even during it was a graduation ceremony for my youngest daughter in kindergarten, and she's in preschool at our church, and my wife's aunt that really runs the program there, and her husband had passed away a few years ago, but they're in the middle of doing some of these songs and prayers, and her husband was the handyman at this location, and right in the middle, all of a sudden, this one of the bells just falls, really loud noise. It's just out of nowhere, and it's just like, oh hi, we know you're here, that we appreciate you being here, kind of thing.
Wow.
And she's just like, oh, who's gonna fix that now? And the next one falls. And it's like, okay, we know now, And those are the kind of things. I mean, it wasn't even an investigation; it just happened. Things like that. We talk about that all the time. That things just happen, whether you're there to record it or get the evidence, whether you're participating in an investigation or not. Things are always happening. You just kind of have to be observant to it. Exactly like you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. And now, what about electronics? Does it seem to you that spirits can manipulate electronics?
Absolutely. Most of the time, it doesn't seem like they're really manipulating them for the purpose of communicating. It does seem like they are rather absorbing the energy from the electronics. There's been so many times where we've had cameras drain, whether it's a video or just a still photography camera. There have been many times where those things will just go. We even have battery backups that will attach with a hard wire, so some of the cameras don't go. and those things are heavy duty. They'll last 8 to 10 hours, and there have been times where those will just straight up drain. As soon as that drains, something happens. It's almost a guarantee. It's kind of a flag for us, like, all right, pay attention, something's going to happen.
Yeah.
A lot of the time when the batteries do drain on those things, outside of a recorder that runs off of like a battery, an actual Duracell kind of battery, there's nothing else running at the time. We don't get anything on video at that point. We can't take a picture because all that's drained. And you can maybe hear something. More than likely it's us reacting to it. But what we've realized is those experiences are so much more worthwhile than the evidence is. While the evidence is important and we love to get amazing things, if we're there in the moment and we're experiencing it, that's really 3/4 of the battle of what we do.
Derrick, one of the biggest controversial subjects that we have discussed, among paranormal enthusiasts and investigators is orbs. So I'd like to get your take on what you think those are.
I would say most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, from our experience, it's either bugs or dust. I mean, a lot of these places are not the cleanest. They're not polished. So you got every step you take, there's something going on, and whether that dust stays in the air or not, you can kick it up easily. You can blow it. Any movement that you have. However, there are occasions where we have noticed I want to say different kinds, because most of the time when these things are close up on your camera, it just looks like a fuzzy blob, right? What we've noticed though are the ones that we feel are legit, where they are small balls of energy, are times where the color is different or where there is something inside of that. So if you go in and you blow it up and you look closely at it and you can see a face or you can see a letter, those are the times that we feel that there is something there. There's more to it, then it's not just dust. It's not just a bug. We actually have a catalog of different things as far as pictures go. What a bug looks like close up, what some different dusts show up as, so we can kind of compare it in the moment. But outside of that, most of the time, I'd say 90% of the time, it's probably just some kind of dust particle or something. But there are definitely occasions where they're more than that. The unfortunate part of it is a lot of the time you don't see it in the moment. Even if you are recording on a camera, you don't see it until the review. The times that you can see it when you're there in the moment, that also tells us that it's something. If you can see it with the naked eye, this ball of energy that's moving, and that has happened, then it's more than just dust reflecting the light. But like you said, very controversial.
Yeah, they are. And well, the ones I pay attention to are the ones that either I've seen with my naked eye or one of my team members or the witness, if they're seeing it with the naked eye and then they're taking pictures or video of it. But I guess good advice would be to a person, if they're seeing that, get your camera out and start videotaping.
Absolutely.
Because you don't know what's going to be in it. Like you said, sometimes there are faces
in
them.
Right.
And it's quite amazing.
And you can actually feel a change in the atmosphere when something enters. It almost feels like the energy is either absorbed or it's like a static electricity in the air. And so you can feel a change in the atmosphere whenever something is nearby. So if you feel that, just start snapping away, because you never know.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I prefer video over stills. Do you?
Oh, 100%. There's so much easier, because we want to debunk first, right? We want to make sure that it's not something that is normal, that is natural. And with a video, you can do that. At the same time, with a video, you can take a still of that video. So I would so much rather have a video that I could take a screen capture of, when something occurs and blow it up, or whatever I need to do to manipulate it to see it better. I would always prefer a video. And I think you can confirm things a lot better, because then you can look around, see who else is there, and confirm that if there's not someone there, is there a pipe? Is there some kind of electricity, an outlet, something that could be causing something else to happen that is more natural? So you can absolutely get a better picture with a camera. We've actually we'll do a walkthrough of whatever the location is, however many rooms it is. We'll spend the time to do a walkthrough with our video camera. So then later on, either in the evening or in review, we can kind of go back and confirm or deny when something is there. We've actually captured things. Now, we haven't seen them move, but we've seen them move from one location to another by basing it off of our walkthrough video. And then we look back in the night and see where something is placed during the investigation or during the time that we're there, and we can kind of confirm that, yes, this was not in the same location.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the creepiest things that I've experienced on investigations is like a doll changing position or being across the room when you go in there a second time.
It's happened twice. Weird. Oh, it's so creepy. You don't even know how to react to it until you experience it. Right. Because the first time it happened, we're freaking out. We're getting the owner. We're documenting everything. We're taking pictures. The second time that it happened, we had actually. One of our teammates had actually left early that night, so it was two of us, and so we're like, she wouldn't have moved it, would she have? Why would she have touched that when earlier in the night she was adamant on not touching or any coming close to any of the dolls? So we're on the phone with her confirming things. We're looking back through our walkthrough video to make sure that it wasn't in a different location. And there's no real explanation for it. And whenever it comes to something like that, unless you're seeing it in the moment, you kind of just have to leave it as unexplained, because there was no camera on it to actually watch the thing walk across a room. But when it goes from one location to another, it's like, how do you tell me how that happens? We are still at a loss for it. And like I said, it happened twice to us, and we're floored each time.
Well, I think also one of the strangest things is objects that become haunted, where a spirit attaches itself to an object. I mean, I had 2 rocking chairs that were haunted once, and then of course several dolls. Why do you think that occurs?
Oh, I think there's so many different reasons. I mean, it could be something that was meaningful in life. It could be something that they were related to. Something that these energies take from their past, and they see this doll, and they can kind of pair it to their innocence, their childhood, and they want to be associated with that. There are other situations, like you said, like with a rocking chair, for example. There have been times where we'll go into an investigation and we'll see or we'll hear about, there's this piece of furniture was brought in to this building after the fact, and then you find out that it was related to the building. So it was someone's mother's chair, and then there is a little girl that's attached to it. So when you have something like that occur, the little girl is then associating that chair with her mother and comfort and stability. So but there's also the flip side of that, where there's negativity that are attached to some of these things, and when that happens, I don't know if there's necessarily a rhyme or reason. It may be the closest or easiest vessel to get into. They may have noticed that that it had activity with other people. So if it was a doll, maybe a child playing with it, and they want to try to get to that child then. But I don't think there's just countless explanations for things like that. And honestly, we love to dig into things like that. We've done antique stores before. We've done just some bed and breakfasts that are eclectic, where they collect things and there's artwork all over the place. We actually just contacted a location here in Pittsburgh. It's called Trundle Manor, where they have just an odd array of things. Some things are occult-like, and we love to go into those places and try to pinpoint certain things. Which object might have something associated with it. It's hard, I'll tell you that, because there's a lot of stuff in those locations.
Oh yeah.
wall to wall, ceiling to ceiling. It's floor to ceiling, I should say. And it's just it's difficult to kind of pinpoint some things, but when you do, it's a game changer. You can feel it change, and then all of a sudden, if you pinpoint these items, again, for better or worse, you can sense that they're, you've now associated them to this item, and you've actually called them out on it, and now there's more activity from it. So it takes time. It takes a lot of time to figure these things out, and usually some site visits prior to the investigation to get a good feel for it. Bringing our mediums or sensitives along to try to pinpoint what spot might be hotter or they're drawn to. So that helps too. Prior to an investigation, instead of going in completely blind. But man, there's so many different objects, and there's so many different reasons we found out that these items can be haunted. I mean, we've even done a haunted museum before. So, with that, going into it, everything has something associated with it, which probably makes it harder, honestly.
Oh, right. Yeah, it's bad when everything is haunted.
Exactly. Then how do you pinpoint one?
Well, let's say you go into a place and they think there's one or two objects that are haunted. What types of equipment would you use in order to pinpoint things down?
We would start small. We would start with things like K2 meters, REM pods, cat balls, music boxes, anything that might kind of give them a sense that, they can come forward and they can let us know of their presence. Usually when people know or think that an item is haunted, it's typically in some kind of case. They set it aside or they set it up somewhere. So we can actually put the device either inside that case or close to it. That way we can actually confirm that something is around, something is there. Having recorders and video cameras running pretty much all the time. As soon as you step in there, you just got it going just in case. From there, if we get some activity with it, we will then either proceed slowly with just some EVPs and open communication, explaining that we're just there to talk to them. We want to know who's there. We want to know why they're there. Things like that. So we don't seem like we're there to push them or force them along. And then if and when they decide that they're comfortable with us, then we would open things up like spirit boxes or phasma boxes, even an SD session to open the communication even further. And usually at those moments, after you've gained their trust and after you've opened that communication up, is when you really start hearing things like names, reasons why they're there, even years of either their life or their death. Those are usually the times. It takes, like I said, it takes time. It definitely takes time to get to that point and reach that moment when they do want to talk to you.
Yeah. I've heard of places where something might take years to get a spirit to respond. They know something's there, but it just won't react to investigators.
Sure.
They might be bothering the family, say, or trying to communicate, but then a stranger comes in and they back off. Do you find that a lot? Oh yeah,
100%. The more times you go to a location, the more acclimated you can get to it and them to you, the better responses you get. Most of the time we're going into a place, for one night, especially the more well-known, bigger locations. But when it comes down to some of these smaller locations, we want to spend some more time there. We want to get to know who's there. We want them to feel comfortable and welcome with us. And, we always compare it to things like if someone just randomly comes into your living room and sits down and tries to talk to you, you're going to talk to them? No, you're going to run away. But if you gently and slowly make your way in, you start opening communication and you explain why you're there and you explain that you're not going to harm them, that you want to talk to them, you want to tell their story, things like that. Whether it's an object that has something attached to it or whether it's the actual building, we found that so many times it helps having reoccurring investigations or many times spent there. We've had times where we'll spend a weekend at places, and the first night we'll get nothing, absolutely nothing. And we'll get bummed out, or we're all excited for it, and then nothing happens. So we will take the approach of just settling in, having some conversation, having some food, just being there, being in the place. So they can kind of realize, hey, they're normal people. We're not pushing, we're not forcing. And then, the next night it's a completely different scenario.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right. Well, we are up on a very short break, and we'll be back right after this. Have you ever wondered what messages starseeds are receiving from their star families? The Unexplained Network and Oz Institute are pleased to announce the Conscious Contact Virtual Conference, June 20th, 2026. Join us to hear messages from the Pleiadians, Arcturians, Venusians, and more with Lily Nova, Isha Patel, Dr. Raymond Keller, April Cordner, and Margie K. These experienced contactees will share what they have learned from the benevolent beings who are assisting Earth people to raise their consciousness. Visit unexnetwork.com for more information and to register. That's unexnetwork.com. Unex Media is pleased to offer 2 books by Dr. Gregory Rogers, former NASA flight surgeon. Impact is an account of the Space Shuttle program in 1992 and the tragedy that occurred even after NASA management had been warned about the damage to the thermal protection system. And in We Got It From Them, Dr. Rogers explains how humanity received ET technology. Both books are receiving much attention by the media. Visit unxmedia.com, that's unxmedia.com for more information, or go to amazon.com to purchase your copies today.
Behind every ghost story and creature feature lies a far more terrifying truth. The real monsters wear human faces. In the chilling book, All Monsters Are Human, from Derrick Smith, 10 Twisted Tales expose the darkest parts of the human soul. From killers hiding in plain sight to obsessions turned deadly. Each story invites you to step into a shadow world where morality unravels, and the only thing more terrifying than what lurks in the dark is who. These aren't just horror stories. They're reflections of ourselves, showing what happens when fear, rage, guilt, and desire take control. Visit unxmedia.com for more information on All Monsters Are Human from Derrick Smith. And you can purchase them at amazon.com from unxmedia.com.
And we're back with Derrick Smith from Iron City Paranormal, and of course, it's a fantastic show on our network as well. But he is an author, so we've got to talk about that. That trailer just played for your first book that we published for you, All Monsters Are Human. And I'll tell you what, Derrick, you're such a nice guy that honestly, when I first read that, I was so creeped out. You're such a good writer, and too scary.
I mean, I take inspiration from a little bit of everywhere, real life experiences to where my mind wanders during some of these investigations. And, this is such a good way for me to get my stories out there on paper. So like you said, it's kind of the exact opposite of how I'm perceived and seen. And it's the exact opposite. Right. And I just love telling these stories. The All Monsters Are Human is an anthology series. So there's a story for everybody, whatever you're into. They're all, they're all psychologically based, but there's everything from the horror factors of things are everything that is based on, human experience, whether it's grief or greed, obsession, betrayal, fear, all of these things, play into it. And in my mind, those kind of things and humanity is scarier than any ghost that I've ever encountered.
Yeah. Not to give away what's in the book, but if you like horror stories, do get that book. And then also this latest one, Real Fear, REEL, Fear. Tell us a little bit about that one.
Yeah, so this one has been one of those pet projects of mine for a while, really ever since I started investigating, because during these investigations, and whether it's, conventions or public investigations, any of these things, you always run across people that you may not trust right off the bat. So I put that into play here. On top of that, the ghost shows that you see on TV, you come to realize that they're not as legit as you might think they are. Not
Right.
necessarily saying that they don't capture anything, but you have to condense an 8 to 10 hour, sometimes weekend investigation into a half-hour show, and there's really only one way to do that, and that's just to take the little bits and pieces. So Real Fear is really about a paranormal investigation team that openly, at least to themselves and to the reader, fakes things to get views and to get on TV, until they encounter something that they can't explain. And it's all about twists and turns, and I try to blur reality and fiction as best I can. Like I said, there's so many times. I mean, we've gone into investigations before where we've been told about cryptids being in the area as well that we're not expecting. We've been told of inmates that had just recently escaped from a hospital, like a mental hospital nearby, and that they're on the loose during our investigation. So those kind of moments, those kind of moments, I just kind of take and I tweak things, and I'm like, what if this would have happened? So it's really kind of an emotional and psychological story about how, when you think about these classic horror films in the entertainment industry, how they can interfere and affect your decisions on really an instantaneous basis, where one or two bad decisions can lead you down a pretty dark path.
So, Derrick, I have to ask you, did any of your cases that you investigated have an influence on either one of those books?
Absolutely. In All Monsters Are Human, there's actually 2 stories in there that are taken directly from locations that we have investigated. There's a story in there that is actually occurs at a real location, not there anymore, but one that I went to when I was younger, high school maybe. And we don't do it anymore, but we kind of broke into the property and we wanted to see and experience something haunted, right? And so I kind of took that and flipped it on its head, where we get up to the location and we did experience things. My friend's nose started bleeding. We get back to the car and it's not. So what if that didn't happen? What if we actually went inside and tried to find out what was going on there? And that was a direct influence on one of the stories, one of my favorite ones, to be honest, regarding the Dixmont Insane Asylum. Like I said, it's not there anymore. They tried to construct a Walmart on the property, and every time they did, there was a landslide. So somebody didn't want a Walmart being there.
Oh my, that's intense.
I'd say so. And then as far as the Real Fear goes, we've actually had people within our group that we found out after the fact were trying to fake things. And and it's really hard for Dan and I to kind of open up to other people because of the trust factor. With Erin joining the group, but aside from her sensitivity skills, we've known her forever. So there's just kind of an automatic built-in trust there. Mm-hmm. But when we start adding people that we meet online or at a convention, and then they start wanting to come along and they want to build themselves up, and then we find out that they think that they're talking to a watcher without any evidence of it, and then they try to convince the public that have paid good money to go on some of these public investigations that we've hosted. These people think that they're talking to a higher power of some sort, and when you find out that they didn't even record anything, we can't even go back and say, this is the conversation that happened. We can't supply anything to the public of their experience there. And then you go on and find out that, they didn't actually they were just putting on a show. Those kind of scenarios and situations I put in to real fear because they actually happen, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go back and you start second guessing things. You go back a year ago when this person was joining us. Well, did they fake this? Did they fake that? And then you ultimately lose trust in people, which again comes into play. How much can you trust even your significant other when it comes down to some of these things, when the almighty dollar and your TV spot is up for grabs? So that's just it's a big hitting home point where, if you're put into that spotlight, what do you do? How far do you go?
I know some people who have worked on some of the TV shows or have been involved as a witness, something like that. And they have caught them faking so much.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, if you're watching TV, folks, just take it with a grain of salt. It's entertainment.
Right.
That's what the producers are there to do. They're to create entertainment. So it's just not all 100% true.
That's right. And we've said it before, where these people aren't necessarily always trying to fake things, but you have to condense it to your highlights of the night. And we've heard that some of these people will stay there for 2 weeks on end. And then they will just take everything that they've seen, all of their biggest things, and kind of tweak the story to make it seem like it all happened in one night. And that's, I think, where we get a little bit turned off from some of these shows, because that's not the truth. We know these people were there for an extended period of time. We've heard it from the location's owners, that these people, they didn't just stay for a night like you think on their show. The ones that really get us, though, are the people that really, they lack the respect factor that we have, that we really care about the property and the energies that are there, whoever they may be, whatever they may be. And I think that rubs a lot of, investigators, it rubs them the wrong way, because when we open ourselves up to a public investigation and we're trying to help people learn, and then all of a sudden you're hearing these people just antagonize these energies, and it's not the right way to do things.
Oh no, that makes me so mad when I see guys go in and yell and scream at the entities, and or just dare them to do something to them, and that is just asking for trouble.
Well, and it's just it is 100%. It is. And I've pushed the boundaries a little bit there by doing things that I've said I wasn't going to do, whether it's calling somebody out by name or just not leaving whenever I'm asked to. Lessons learned, obviously. But you have these people who will go into it watching someone like Zach Baggins, you're going to throw yourself at them, and you're going to lose all respect for the group, even not just that one person, but everybody there is now possibly in danger. And the amount of trust and respect that we may be trying to get from them before opening communication, you lose it right off the bat. And it's because of one person's stupidity, something they saw happen on TV, that they lost themselves. And I'm not saying that those people are bad people. They just might watch too much TV, or they might really want something to happen. We've been some of these things that we've done. We've helped run investigations. People will actually say mid-investigation, "Oh, you guys are ghost hunters. Well, why can't we see a ghost, or show us the ghost?" It's like, they're people, man. They're not monkeys. They're not gonna perform on command like that. Mm-hmm. And as soon as you do that, first off, we walk away, because when I will have nothing good to say to that person. So we kind of remove ourselves from that situation, because we don't want that to reflect on us either. We are not with this person. We don't agree with that. We don't have the same things to say. We're just not like them. So we try to remove ourselves from those situations, but it happens. And it sucks. Just the situations that occur in those moments, they're tough. The groups that I like, the people that come back with us multiple times, those are the people that, they seem to understand what we're doing, why we do things, and that it takes time, that they're not going to do backflips for you and turn the lights on and off for you at their beck and command, that you have to build up this rapport with them, just like you would any person.
Yeah, exactly. What is the scariest thing that ever happened to you on an investigation?
Well, I've got two that come to mind. The first was at Gettysburg, in the orphanage, and that's kind of I alluded to that earlier when I called this caretaker out by name. Her name was Rosa Carmichael, and she was horrible to the children. She would put them in pits and chain them outside, and there was really nothing that was happening. So I called her out by name. We walked back. We were in the pit that she put the children. I called her out by name, and all of a sudden I was dry heaving like crazy. I've never experienced something like that, to the point where they had to get me off the property. As soon as I stepped outside the building, I was perfectly fine. But we called it quits at that point. It was just too much, and we didn't want to escalate it.
No.
The other one occurred at Post Town Elementary School, where I stepped out in the hallway. We were just in a small room, like just a classroom. Pretty much had the entire group in there. I step out in the hallway because I'm hearing footsteps, and so I'm trying to record. I have my recorder in one hand, I have my video camera in the other, and I'm just kind of walking there. So I end up putting the video camera down for a second so I can snap a picture. As soon as I do that, I do it in groups of three. Snap 3 pictures back to back to back. And as I'm doing that, in each frame, you can actually see this black blob moving closer and closer. And as soon as I put the phone camera down, there's this black just darkness in my face, to the point where I retreat back into the classroom, kind of running, falling. And you can ask pretty much anybody that goes with us, like, that's not me. It doesn't happen to me. I'm the first one in with the video camera expecting something to happen. So when that happens and I'm reacting like that, something's going on. But that was one of those moments. I mean, it gets up in your face and it startles you. You're not expecting something like that, especially in an elementary school.
Yeah, true. You really wouldn't expect a negative energy to be there.
I mean, there were rumored to be more negative energies, things like janitors, even some of the teachers. But when you go into a classroom, you're expecting to talk to, maybe kids, maybe pick up some residual energy. Not once did I ever hear about some shadow figure running at people. It wasn't on my bingo card that night. So it definitely threw me off.
Did you ever have a negative entity follow you home?
So it's hard to say. I've had weird things happen, especially early on when I was, I don't want to say I was collecting things, but, if I was gifted something from a haunted site, I would take it home and just kind of toss it, put it in my closet and kind of, display them all together. And they were really nice things for, when we could take to conventions. But so I can't say if it was one thing or another, but early on when we started doing shows like this, like podcasts, where people would just, reach out and say, hey, you're a ghost hunter. Could we talk to you around Halloween time? We were on a show at one point, and we were talking about the Hat Man. And we actually went back and we had a few pictures from different locations that appeared to be the same entity. Whether it was a Hat Man or not, we don't know. But it appeared to be the exact same look, almost like a skeletal figure. And it seemed to be, because I used to take these items with us on investigations too. Like I would put them in my backpack and I would have them all there. So it seemed to me that maybe something attached to something. Like I said, I don't know what. But during one of those early on podcasts, as we were discussing this man and showing these pictures, my computer caught on fire. The cord out of nowhere, it snapped, and it was a little poof, and it was fire. I mean, I lost connection, and I'm freaking out. I'm like, I don't want this thing to spread throughout my house.
Wow.
Needless to say, I don't have any of those things near me anymore. We even owned a Dybbuk box, so it could have been that it was associated with. But I've never actually felt any negativity come home with me. I felt negativity places, even outside places. So we'll do a blessing after and sage just in case. But so we take all the preventative measures we possibly can. That's not to say something can't still hitchhike and jump into one of these things, but I don't take them with us anymore. I don't typically take them out. I save them in a locked box for conventions. That's pretty much it. But there have been some times where I have been on shows, and if it was with maybe a medium, they would say that there's somebody standing behind me, or that there's some kind of dark figure that they keep seeing pop up, or a growl. So that was all before I took all those things out of my space. So it's highly possible there was something there. There still may be. But I actually have a little glass case that was blessed. It actually has there's a little thing of holy water inside of it and some crystals, and I keep it locked just in case. Because even if there's a 0.001% chance, I want it to stay there.
Oh yeah, exactly. We don't want anything following us home.
Yeah, it's between attachments to me, and then my family, who have no interest in these kinds of things. They don't venture out. They don't do this kind of stuff. So for me to bring something back with me that could affect them is just not fair to them either.
No, that would be bad, especially with children.
Exactly. Yeah, that's kind of one of the biggest fears there. One of my daughters used to say that they saw their mirror self. They would have a friend, and that they would talk to them in the mirror, and it creeped me out for a while. I'm not gonna lie. That hasn't happened for a while, so maybe it was all associated. I don't know.
Oh yeah. So, well, and the imaginary friends with kids. I mean, sometimes that could be real.
Well, you hear so many stories about how kids and their innocence, and they're not so pushed towards one side or the other, so they're more open to these things, and you kind of have to just. And they're still kids, so they have an imagination. So you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt, but at the same time, with the background that I have, with all of these investigations we do, with all the private residences that do have things happen to them and their entire family, I do try to, I do have a wall built up on some of those occasions where I don't want to necessarily shun them from exploring their imagination, but I also don't want to pursue it too much either.
Yeah, we don't want to encourage it.
Exactly.
Yeah, because you just don't know. Derrick, let's talk about your show for a little bit, The Other Side of the Bridge. What is the concept for the show?
It's really everything paranormal. We talk everything from prepping for investigations to researching to our personal experiences. We'll even talk, crystals, what they do for you, how you can enhance yourself, your life. Most of the time, it's showing some evidence, telling some story, whatever we may have found out from that location. Other times we'll have on guests that will tell us about their location. That most of the time when we go to these locations that are a little bit lesser known, these people do like to get their name out there a little bit, and they're all so nice and so accommodating that we feel like it's the least we could do is try to give them a little bit of a push, a little bit of a platform to talk about the location, what they've experienced. And a lot of the time they're associated with some kind of historical society, so they have a lot of history to tell. And so we'll touch on a little bit of everything. I know coming up, we're kind of prepping and preparing for the next episode here. We're going to be talking about things like local lore and stories that kind of got to us when we were younger. Everything from the Mothman to the Green Man around here, to Bloody Marys. So a little bit of everything comes up on the show. It's just a different paranormal topic every week.
Yes, and it is a very interesting show, and I like that you bring up different topics. Each time it's not just the same thing repeated over and over again.
We fell into that trap early on, but we kind of changed the format to more of an open discussion, where we'll show some things, talk about some things, but then we just kind of open it up to talk and to, from a paranormal perspective, it can just go on and on. There's never enough time in an episode to talk about everything that you want, but it's always a blast. We always have a good time doing it. And we love the interaction with people, the comments, whenever they'll even message us after the fact and talk about some of the things. We try to keep it lighthearted. We do joke about things, but we also think that carries over into the investigations themselves, where so many people go into these things so serious. we just go into it as us, and that's how we like to take our show as well. It's just us talking paranormal, and we try to keep it lighthearted, but we respect the mood when it does change. But there's just so many different ins and outs of the paranormal that you can just go on, and I feel like we touch on everything, and that's what we want to do. That's the idea of the industry, right? It can be anything.
Oh yeah, paranormal is a broad subject.
Absolutely, 100%.
It covers so much, from UFOs to cryptids to haunted sites and
everything in between.
What is the most haunted place you have ever investigated?
That's tough. I would say probably Moundsville State Penitentiary. Definitely one of the more well-known ones that we've done. It's on a lot of TV shows. There's so much history to it. But it felt like everywhere you turned, something was happening. Whether it was hearing some odd footsteps or whispers to actually seeing shadows. Even to people experiencing things where they felt like they weren't themselves anymore, like they were being channeled by something. Changing the atmosphere completely. It didn't matter what it was. Something was always happening. And that was, I think that's the only location that I can say that about. There's when we go into these places, we have a safe space, we call it, where we have the lights on, we have all of our equipment, some snacks, some place that you can kind of take the edge off a little bit when things get too intense. A place like this, that doesn't exist. The only way that you can get that break is if you leave the building, you get out of the property, because as soon as you step foot on that site, man, it's heavy. And it continued that way all throughout the night until we left. And they wanted to talk, they were active, and it was one of those memorable ones. Like I said, a lot of places have covered it. It's on a lot of shows, and there's a reason for that.
Yeah, I have remote viewed that location and other penitentiaries. I've been invited to go on investigations, and so I always remote view before I go to a site.
Sure.
The heavy, dark energy in these penitentiaries is so bad, every one of them, that I will not go.
Yeah, I believe it. I mean, if you can sense that from just remote viewing, I can only imagine what it would be like for you to step on site. They are heavy, and just for people that are taking tours during the day of some of these places for the historic value, you hear those stories so often that people were chased out of there during the day, and they're not even there for the paranormal aspect.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, Derrick, what do you have coming up? What's new on the horizon for you?
Well, from the investigation perspective, we have a few places that there's one that's a return trip, place that we had some things thrown at us the first time around, Fairfield County Infirmary. That one's coming up pretty imminently. We're preparing for it now. From there, we have places that we've heard a lot about, and will be first times, like the Doss House. And then we're going to head back up to Waterford, PA, and cover the Eagle Hotel. That one will be exciting because we've been there before. We have some experience with the place, and the owners, the Historical Society, are incredible with their amount of knowledge that actually help the investigation along. From the writing perspective, I've got a lot of stuff in the works. I've got so many stories up here that I'm trying to get to paper, and it's hard to keep track sometimes. But I got some anthologies lined up, kind of a continuation of All Monsters Are Human, starting on some novels. Just so many ideas, stemming from, I love horror movies, but man, they've, until this year, I got to say, they've kind of hit a lull. So, I pull from a lot of my low expectations and disappointments from the entertainment industry and what things should be. And I love to intertwine things between fact and fiction. I love it whenever a reader tells me, I couldn't tell what was real and what wasn't. And that's kind of, I love that aspect of it because I love the history. I love the research of these things.
Well, I'll tell you what, your books read like screenplays.
Well, thank
maybe
you.
somebody will pick them up because they're very good.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Derrick, and I will be talking to you soon, obviously.
Absolutely.
And,
thank you very much for having me.
All right. I'll see you later.
All right, take care.
Derrick Smith, everybody. Got to check out their show, The Other Side of the Bridge, and also Derrick's books. Just go to unexnetwork.com for more information. I'll see you here next week.